term called killer anxiety. Now, just by hearing me say the words killer anxiety may give you one of two different reactions. One, this is something that you deal with every time you play the role, or two, this is a dumb video and DVD isn't that serious. Regardless of what your initial response may be, this problem...
I do want to tackle that second point. I do feel like whenever someone brings up killer anxiety, there is that point that he just said, where people are just like, oh my god, just touch grass. It's a fucking video game. How are you getting anxious in a video game? But I need people to realize, because they do that very often, that is like the dumbest possible... It's not even a counter argument. It's nothing. Like, we're talking about anxiety that arises when playing a video game. If you tell someone to stop playing that game in order to not feel that anxiety anymore, you're not engaging with the talk. It's like if I said, like, in a fighting game, I'm getting my ass beat by, I don't know, by Ryu or something like that. I can't beat his fucking Hadouken. I don't know what to do. And then someone's like, dude, just stop playing the game. He can't beat you anymore. Like, it's that level of stupid argument. You're not even addressing what they're saying anymore. You're just telling them to go do a completely separate thing. All of the discussion that involves killer anxiety takes place just in the confines of Dead by Daylight. So you would only ever discuss it in the scope of Dead by Daylight. As soon as you bring real world into it, you've left the discussion. You're just talking about something else. So I've always thought that argument with touch grass, it's just a video game, blah, 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 makes no sense, because that only applies when we're not talking about the thing that we're talking about. Does that make sense?
Does in fact exist, and I think deserves more attention than what some people are willing to give. Firstly, what is anxiety?
This is when I knew the video was going to be good.
Apprehensive uneasiness or
he defines anxiety,
usually over an impending or anticipated misfortune. Anxiety affects around 359 million people globally, making it one of the most common mental disorders in the world. And that's the good news. The bad news is it manifests in video games as well. So what does anxiety have to do with a game like Dead by Daylight, and particularly when playing the killer?
This is Spooky Loops, not Spook and Shoots. I will link it after the video, obviously.
Now, as I've recently learned over the past few months, there are so many levels to this issue, which we'll go over later, but for now, let's keep it at surface level. In the world of Dead by Daylight, killer anxiety is the stress or worry about different scenarios that can occur when simply playing the game. The bad set of chases, getting overwhelmed with your objective, or even worrying about what the others...
Hey, please, like, don't do that. Thank you, Mitch. Yeah, don't do that.
I will say, based on your decisions.
As long as I'm watching.
Here's a quick example. You load into a game and had a rough first chase, and upon hooking your first survivor, you see only 2 gens remaining, with a 4th already at 50%. You take a look around the map to see if the scenario is salvageable, but your last gens are spread so deep into the corners of the map, you know your patrol is going to be a nightmare. Even for a killer with mobility, this can be a daunting task. So what are you feeling when this scenario happens? What about feeling helpless? If you've ever felt any of these things, then, my friend, that is killer anxiety. Let me explain. If you played DVD for the first time without any prior experience and got rolled, you'd probably just write it off because you don't know any better. So why doesn't that mentality stick with you each time you get destroyed? It's because over time we learn what having no agency or feeling helpless can be like.
That is one interpretation of it. I kind of view it a little differently. I think killer anxiety is more of a self-reflection of how you are doing in the match. You get anxiety because, or at least for me personally, I would get killer anxiety due to being perceived as a bad player due to the actions I'm taking. And if there's, 2 gens left and I haven't gotten a hook yet, then I have that anxiety of being perceived as a bad player. Now that might be because I'm a streamer and I have to be publicly facing more scrutiny, and if I'm not viewed as a good player, people won't give a shit what I have to say about the game. So I might have a different level of anxiety, but I think that is another important form of it, where it's based on how you view your performance in that match. And that's why a new player won't be anxious at all, because they have no baseline. You're not scared. You know what it's like? It's like in Elden Ring, when I would do invasions. If I would invade, with like a broken straight sword while naked, if I died there, I'm like, whatever. Of course I'm gonna fucking lose. I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, this is gonna do nothing. But if I go in a full meta setup and then I still die...
Ne želim da objašnjavam. Da, ne želim da objašnjavam.
нахуй.
I'm like, wow, that's really embarrassing. Even in this game, it's like I find it more stressful to play Nurse and Blight than Pig and Skull Merchant, for example, because the latter, there's nothing expected of you. Like, if you do poorly, you can very safely and not even unfairly say, yeah, because these killers are fucking terrible. But if you go in with like a really good killer and you still lose, well, then you're like, man, I suck. And that is the feeling I think a lot of anxiety is built around from that.
To be honest, it's fucking awful. It's such an unpleasant feeling that you dread it happening again, or simply just avoid the role altogether. As mentioned earlier, I've learned that killer anxiety has many different layers to it and isn't just limited to shit that happens in a game. For some, it's far more complex and starts right in the lobby.
Oh, this is hardcore documentary.
Sometimes the aftershock of a bad game can create pre-game stressors before you even join the queue. And a lot of that stems from the, quote, power roll expectation this game has. You are faster and dangerous, so anything less than that is embarrassing, right? You are fundamentally responsible for everyone's experience in the server, including yours. You don't have a teammate to carry you, and every mistake you make is on you and you alone.
I think that is one of the biggest components to it. I'm glad he said it. That is definitely one of the biggest components, that you have no one else to rely on. Even if it's solo queue and your teammates are dumb lemmings, you can at least blame the loss on them, and that still makes it less stressful. Not a single time ever playing Survivor have I had sweat in my pits at the end of the game, but I can think of several games, even in the past couple of weeks, where at the end of the game, I'm like, oh, Jesus, like, dude, I don't consciously realize I'm stressing about it, but then by the end of it, once it's over, I'm like, oh, you know, I've just physically stressed over that. Because, yeah, you are responsible for everything. These are the obvious points, though, so I'm sure he's going to get into more specific stuff, but I think these are the very obvious points that everyone has talked about killer anxiety. You know, your expectations and the fact that you are solely... You have no one to rely on. It's just you. That is, you know, always going to be more stressful. I have long said, no matter what, killer will always be more stressful, even if it's like 80% kill rates. Killer will still be more stressful. It might be easier to win, but there is still more required from you in order to perform. So it's always gonna, it can't not be more stressful just due to the number imbalance.
It's the expectation that many people have heading into a match or before they even click ready. So let's start with something simple like character selection. Depending on how some of your previous games have been, I've learned that some people avoid certain killers altogether out of fear for getting flamed for simply existing. Ghoul, Nurse, Legion, etc.
For me, it's not feared for that. It's feared that they're just gonna fucking disconnect. I just want to play the game. I've stopped caring about the perceptions of what the killer is at this point. I just want people to actually fucking play.
And God forbid you had a bad game when using them. You had trouble piloting a strong killer and got socially shit on because they were expected to perform to a certain standard. X killer does Y better equals you should have killed everyone. And when you don't, the social impact can resonate so bad that those killers go permanently back on the shelf. So what is the alternative? For people who have this anxiety, they might exclusively pick mid to low tier killers because it accomplishes two things. One, if you have a shit game, you won't feel as bad because the killer is fundamentally weaker, thus the overall performance expectation is considered low. Par for the course. Or two, chances of getting shit talked or taunted could be lower because you might be perceived as less threatening. I've been playing this game since 2019, and while writing the script, I even realized that this had an effect on me to some degree. In my case, I stare at the full roster of killers and sometimes deliberately avoid playing strong characters solely because I'm rusty and fear having a bad performance in front of an audience, let alone 4 random people in a match. So I tend to stick to my wheelhouse of comfort killers because it's easier than dealing with the disappointment of not reaching the expected result. And it doesn't stop with just character selection. The same thing goes for builds as well. Certain perks have notoriously been perceived in a negative light by the community that you may avoid them entirely. Sure, this perk provides a strong value, but is it worth having an anonymous mode survivor call me a slur for using it? Or I want to experiment with something new.
I'm gonna talk about NOED for a second. I feel like NOED is so... There's no... You don't complain about NOED anymore. I'm sorry. That perk has been nerfed and nerfed and nerfed. It's still a good perk, but I think if you're complaining about NOED in 2026, you need to just fucking grow up, man.
But I don't want to sacrifice my sanity if I can't keep up in the game. The mental gymnastics that some players go through like this is the reason as to why they stay complacent in 2026 D&D. Sometimes it's easier to bring a knife to a gunfight than feel like shit for trying. And all of this is far worse for newer players. Oftentimes, new players are confined to a limited pool of perks and killers that force them to use the best what they have.
There's also less expectation on them to win too, though.
So they head into a game, usually under-equipped against a team they shouldn't be facing due to current skill-based matchmaking, get walked, and pray they don't get made fun of. I remember a specific instance that happened to me when I was about 1 month into playing the game. Back then, I was getting destroyed every single match because I lacked gen defense. So Hex Ruin was a perk I needed to acquire. Unfortunately, earning blood points at the time wasn't great, so I decided to pick up Leatherface because Old Barbecue and Chili was a great way to farm BP. I went into the match with Tier 1 Barbecue, 2 other crap perks, and no one escapes death. A build that fit my current budget. Long story short, I got bent over the entire game, and then the last gen popped. I got my second hook because of Know It and was able to secure my one and only kill solely because saving against a chainsaw isn't easy. The game was a terrible experience for me, but what happened next was worse. A streamer and his friends tore me to shreds for using a singular perk and completely disregarded that I was getting bodied for the last 15 minutes. I still remember who you are, motherfucker. Luckily, I was able to move on from that, but for some, this is exactly how
Ja sam gledao neki intervju,
that
neki
is
lik
a subset of this thing, but it's more a streamer
kao
specific
radi
thing
logove za
where
cesiju, ono.
like a streamer, like you'll do something, like you perform badly against the streamer,
Čitarom što pravi
and then the
cheat
streamer's community
za
will like
content.
shit on you.
Mislim sam toliko, gleda se to.
And
Sećaš
think
te
that's-
rekao da Valve radi na novom
from
Matiću,
the
to
other
završit
side, like
ćeš.
as someone that has been on the receiving end of that, because I don't really think I've ever been like on the giving end of that, but
Teško to
on the
pohvatati.
receiving, this just happened last stream. If you guys remember, obviously I'm not going to mention the streamer. I don't even remember their name, but we went against the streamer, and we were in the event mode, and like 3 minutes in, he disconnected and was just bitching at us in post-game chat for abusing the event. I think I went invisible one time, so he was mad at us for doing the event in the event queue. And so I was like, what do you mean, man? I didn't do anything to you. I'm doing the events in the event queue. And he said like something like, you're a loser for hiding your name, because I always stream on Anonymous, for abusing all of the event mode shit. And it was like, I just wanted to make fun of him so bad. I was just like, what's the point? It's a dude who's clearly tilted. He's gonna probably be embarrassed about it the next day for the shit he said, but I don't know. I feel like that would be easy content for me to make, but it also is like super like low-hanging fruit. Like the dude clearly, we've all said some embarrassing shit when we've been like, you know, tilted before.
Yes.
And I don't know. One little aside, he acted like he was watching my stream on his own stream, and then he invented a thing I didn't say to make him look better and then close the stream, but I just never said it. If it was someone more prominent, I would probably at least fucking tweet about it or something, but I think I had like 10 viewers, so I don't really give a shit. But it was pretty frustrating to be on the receiving end of that. But anyway, sorry, little side tangent.
With that said, I think it's time to discuss the meat and potatoes, the real place that killer anxiety resides, the match itself. I understand the DVD community can be incredibly tribalistic. Survivors hate killers and killers hate survivors. This is absolutely
I hate
nothing new.
everybody.
For me personally, I play both sides. However, I feel that some folks often forget or intentionally discount what this game requires the killer role to do because of their exclusivity or limited experience to one side. DVD is essentially a game of time. Whoever manages that time better usually wins. Since survivors can't kill killers like in other titles, it makes sense that the game is designed to put a heavier workload on the power roll. So, I'm not asking for empathy here. However, in a game of DVD, the wheels can start to fall off at any moment, and for some, as early as the first chase. I made a YouTube community post a few months ago when I first announced that I was going to be taking on this project. I asked people to tell me what killer anxiety meant to them, and out of the over 400 comments, I noticed one very common consistency. The feeling of losing multiple gens in your first chase feels like shit. Out of my 8,500 hours, I can confirm that is true. The reason as to why this feels so bad is because it can be perceived as a direct reflection of your skill or performance.
I have a take about this as well. I'm sorry I'm pausing a lot, but without it, I mean, we're already halfway done. This video is not very long, so. That whole thing where, like, you haven't gotten it down and there's, like, 2 gens left. See, that's not... I'm weird. I don't get anxiety from that. If that's the scenario I'm in, that means I exactly know what my actual... I know what everything is. Like, I'm aware of how many gens are done. I'm aware of exactly how much time I have left now. The times I get really anxious are when I've been in a game for 2-3 minutes and I'm struggling to down the first guy and nothing has popped. That makes me really scared because I don't have information on anything and some shit's about to happen. It's like being told that you have a bad disease versus not knowing what's making you sick. You know what I mean? Sometimes having the answer, having the exact amount of time you have left with those 2 generators all getting completed right as you get the first hook is less stressful than having no gens done because you don't know what the fuck is going on. And there could be 4 separate people on 4 separate... You could be in a great scenario, you could be in a terrible scenario, and it's that not knowing that actually makes me more anxious. So I think I'm a little weird on that one, but...
This usually turns into frustration or embarrassment, which unfortunately can lead to helplessness. For people with killer anxiety, this is worst case scenario happening in real time. That feeling of being in an unwinnable situation. The only difference between veteran players like myself and someone that is newer is we're just able to identify sooner. It also doesn't help that DVD does a terrible job at providing educational tools for anything outside of Hook Survivor, Kick Gen. So it's no surprise that players who invest too much time in their first engagement just get ran over. I have 1.5 generators left. A third of my perks require hook activation, and there are 14 pallets still left on the map. Since we understand that DVD is a game of time, the stress of having a ticking clock in the back of your mind for some is enough to induce actual panic. And sometimes it's hard to step back from the panic or a high-stress environment and think with a level head. It can be very overwhelming and unfortunately usually results in more mistakes occurring. Another complaint I saw were people running into squads who make griefing you their only objective. The quote bully squad is a term made very popular in the community. These individuals have abandoned standard gameplay for doing everything in their power to turn you into a pinata. Continuous stuns, flashlight locker saves, sabos, the list goes.
Do you guys get anxiety from bully squads? I feel like if you're a viewer of mine, you probably don't, because I'm a streamer and you must copy my opinions. You guys do get anxiety from it. Oh shit. Seems kind of split.
Biće dobar kod, samo što volim što je ovaj
Not so split anymore. Leaning towards no.
Što se tiče Call of Duty,
I think, sorry, Dopey, I thought you'd be setting the trend, but you seem to be the odd one out. Yeah, exactly. To me, bully squads, I could not give less of a shit about. In fact, bully squads to me are the least stressful matches